I'm Eric Loy, and welcome to Eric Loy Interviews. On this podcast, we talk with folks from the VTuber community on their channels, their talents, their stories, where they come from, and their plans for the future. We are joined by Vixwytch. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you coming on. Please introduce yourself to everybody.
Hello, I am Vix, Demon First Class Unlimited License at your service. I'm bad at my job, but I'm here. Hi.
Well, you can't be that bad if you got the unlimited license. I mean, that's probably quite a few years of work there.
Or, yeah, sure, we can go with that.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. How long have you been VTubing?
I've been VTubing now. My debut, I did the typical VTuber debut thing where I debuted actually on 5/5 of 2021, and then 2 weeks later went on a 7-month hiatus.
Perfect.
And then, so I actually really started in January of 2022.
No.
Is when I really started.
So you're a veteran of the wars, eh?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah.
I've been around a little while.
Yeah, you joke about having the time off, but that's a lot of folks have that. They start off like a house of fire, and then immediately throw themselves behind the 8-ball. And start over again.
In this case, it was there were some other things going on, and I did not have the time anymore. Unfortunately, things just happened.
Well, yeah, life gets in the way. Stupid life getting in the way all the time, and not able to do the stuff like this that you'd want to do. But what brought you to it in the first place?
I used to stream before. I streamed on several platforms before. I streamed on YouTube. I streamed on Nico Duga. And now I stream on Twitch.
Oh.
So I've been around a little bit.
You just enjoy being a creator.
What's that?
You just enjoy being a creator?
Yeah, I've been doing entertainment for a long time, since I was younger. So for many years at this point.
Oh.
All I know.
So the audience thing, the audience question that I ask doesn't even apply to you because you're used to it.
Oh, which question's that?
The one about getting on and getting used to having an audience when you haven't before, but you've had audiences.
Yeah, I have. The interesting thing for me is getting used to the streaming audience, actually. I'm used to live audiences. So that's a bit different.
Hey, that's funny, because I talked to, in 30-some years doing radio, I talked to a lot of folks who were out in front of audiences and performing or sports or what have you, and they were nervous about being in a studio with one person on a microphone.
Oh.
And I was like, you do much more than this on an average day. I couldn't possibly get out in front of people and do what you do. But it's a different horse, isn't it? It's a different type of situation.
It very much is. I think the one-on-one is a little more intimidating to people. The intimacy, I think, maybe gets to people. Where it's I think in this kind of situation, I think it's an interesting thing when you get into it, because when you have chat up or when you are on stage and you have an audience, there's a barrier there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lack of what's the word I'm looking for? That intimacy.
Right.
And that connection's no longer there that much. It's there, but it's no longer on that level. So when you're one-on-one, it's like, oh, hi. But I you mentioned radio, like being in radio booths and things like that with people. It's just a different kind of thing. But you're not alone, though, sometimes. Like, there's engineers there, and there's sometimes the people in the room.
Yeah, well, in 2025, there aren't very many people left at all.
I would imagine not.
And now, back in the 80s when I started, there were a lot of people that were around. But like any industry, everything changes like that, and when you get lots of satellites involved. But for you, how big of a transition was it for you to go from? I imagine when you were recording before and doing things, it wasn't a live audience. When you recorded for online, making that transition over to a live audience.
Online, the transition wasn't too bad actually.
Mm.
It was because I had been doing live streaming
Oh,
before.
okay.
Before I came to Twitch,
Hmm.
I was doing some live streaming on YouTube Gaming
Mm.
back when that was a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I had been on a couple of people's live streams. I've been around Twitch now for a while, so I was kind of used to the platform.
Mm.
So I've been active on Twitch, not necessarily on my own channel, but on other people's channels and things, doing collabs and stuff since 2017.
Go.
So I've been around a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Um,
you've got some tricks you ain't showing nobody.
yeah, there's some old school tricks there for sure. Um, and so it wasn't that big of a transition. The difference was for me is the I guess the expectation that chat may have when you're live. It's a little bit
Mm.
different. And trying to keep up with chat is also difficult some days.
Oh, well, yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's flying by, and you're trying to read what's going on, and trying to keep up. And then you want to make sure you're not making them feel that they're being ignored because you're not able to read what's going on. It's
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's downward
That's
spiral.
definitely
Yeah, it can be really tough. Now, being on stage though, you're interacting with the audience, but you're more that you don't have the individual feedback necessarily that you do on in streaming. And does that make a difference for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
I think if you get to a big enough streaming level as well, I think the same thing happens
Mm.
where you in that case you're interacting for the audience or you're interacting at the audience in a way.
Mm.
And I think larger streamers where you have a situation where you have thousands in chat,
Mm.
it's very much the same thing.
Oh,
You
yeah.
really, there's no way to actually read comments if chat's flying super fast.
Mm. Yeah. It's
Is smaller streamer, have like 50 to 100 in chat.
mm,
That area, you can have a more meaningful conversation with viewers at that point.
yeah. Well, I would think that when you're getting up in that range, you better have moderators. Um,
Oh yeah, I have moderators now.
yeah.
I'd be lost without them.
Yeah, because
Uh,
there's just no
my
way. There's
goodness.
just really, I can't imagine being that adept and to do whatever you're doing on stream, whether it's whatever type of stream somebody does, and then pay enough attention to make sure that chat X isn't whacking chat Y over the head with something.
Oh, I agree for sure. It's like having security at a concert, right?
Mm.
In a similar way.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but my moderation team, I'd be lost without them. I have four regular moderators and two that kind of float.
Mm.
Um, and they're great. I'd be so lost without them, honestly. They are a huge help. They're
Yeah.
a huge help.
So what brings you to Vix being Vix after being an entertainer for so long? What was the draw for you to do this particular type of streaming?
To the VTubing, I've been a fan since Kizuna Ai.
Mhm.
So since the very early days of that. And also here in it's something where I've always kind of wanted to do something that's more creative.
Mm.
The creativity end of it's been the big thing.
Mm.
I've always wanted to explore new creative avenues
Mhm.
and not be limited by physical surroundings.
Yeah.
And I also, after seeing some people do, I saw a few people do some things that were pretty interesting as far as music goes. And being a drummer,
Mhm.
I was like, is it possible to do V drumming? So that's been my big goal
Yeah.
that we've been working on for like a year now, and it is getting there.
I would think it'd be tough to keep the tracking going with that. Um,
That is the challenge. I've talked with several VTubers about it, a couple that have actually attempted it as well.
mm.
And everybody thinks I've lost my mind. And I go, well, I'm a VTuber, so yes, that's obvious. Um,
And that was day
but
one.
yeah, that was day one. That's when you get the character made, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
when
that's
the
right.
concept comes in.
Right.
And then day two is I want to do this, and we've been working towards it slowly. We're getting there. We're
Hmm.
getting there. I think I'll be able to pull it off. There's one other person here in Japan that does it as well.
Mm.
So, but they do it in VR chat,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit different.
Now,
But we're getting there.
yeah. Now you mentioned on stream before, and you mentioned in the past that you are a drummer and a rock drummer, not just a rock drummer. How would you describe the type of music that you drum for?
Oh, so for me, I started in punk music.
Hmm.
I started punk. That's how I learned. But technically, my first, if I really want to go way back to it, I learned taiko drumming very, very early. I was taiko
Oh,
trained to do that. That's where I started,
wow.
and then I quickly shifted over to punk. I was in a punk band, and then I shifted from that into metal music. So, like hard rock, metal, and a little bit of progressive stuff sometimes.
Well, there's a
And that's
difference
that's
there.
kind of where I am now.
Yeah, but folks, I don't know, folks realize the differences in that. You know, because I mean, I'm old enough to remember the first parts of punk rock, and the the drumming for that isn't just loud banging and all. You still have to. A lot of times, the drumming carries the punk song. Um,
It does, yeah.
yeah, a lot more than maybe some other music does. Certainly metal music, because metal by definition is mostly guitars and such. But the beat was the biggest thing for a punk band in the '70s, which I still remember.
Oh, absolutely. The Ramones and bands like that,
Oh,
absolutely. It was so important for them.
yeah, yeah.
It gave them so much of that style.
Hmm. And you look at,
And even when you get into pop punk though, like even look at like the more modern stuff, like when you get into Green Day and things like that,
yeah,
it's still there.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
and the post punk had it too in the '80s. Um, One of my favorite bands still is, even though they're never getting back together, is the Jam. They'll never get back together, but I don't care. I love all their music. So there. And they in like early Elvis and the attractions, they were very much a drum, based on the drum. Um, but you also look at some of the other bands at that time that came around. You mentioned the Ramones, and of course the Pistols, and the Dead Kennedys. They're very much the drum carries what goes on, because you have to keep that pace going. A punk song tends to keep the same pace throughout it, and you don't want to slow down or speed up.
No, you don't want to. And there's not too many, the timing doesn't change that much either. It's
Yeah,
very you usually keep the same timing throughout a song as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You got to keep the mosh
Like
pit going.
in metal it gets crazy. We I shift timing 3 or 4 times in a song.
Oh yeah. Now
So
with the metal and that, I know there are some metal bands that have gone um, to some more symphonic type of timing, even getting out of the traditional uh, 4-3-3-4-4-4 type of measures. Have you had to deal with that in the past?
I've never actually done anything symphonic necessarily. I can play it. I've
Hmm.
learned some of the songs.
Yeah.
Like songs from Epica and people like that, or Nightwish and things. But generally it's not something I've come across professionally,
Mm,
at least. I haven't really done any session work either for that.
mm,
Usually my stuff, it'll end up being like 4/4, and then sometimes it'll be like, it'll sometimes get into like 6/8,
yeah.
or sometimes it'll get into, you know, 11/13 or 9/7,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. That's
um,
that's what I'm talking about.
or you get in, yeah.
It's and you hear some of these bands that will change up and go from a 3-4 to a 10-4. Like, what are you even doing?
Yeah.
Um, and I feel sorry mostly for the drummers, because
Well,
is that like throwing a car from third gear into reverse?
no, sometimes not. It just makes sense for what's going on musically at the time,
Mm,
for what's happening in the song. It just makes sense.
mm.
to change things up because there's a tempo change or there's a vocal part that's coming in or there's a guitar solo or something or we're focusing on something else.
Yeah.
Um, Metal is kind of it's a giant playground.
Hmm.
Most of it is 4/4. The
Yeah.
vast majority, like power metal,
Yeah.
um, and things like that are 4/4. You get into Iron Maiden and stuff like that. It's mostly 4/4 as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It's
But
pretty
you're
cut
not
and
getting
dry
too
there.
much weirdness there.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially when you get out to the kind of the fringes of it, it does change up a little bit. And you see now you're kind of moving toward the pop metal type thing.
I mean, I wouldn't say that necessarily. I mean, metal's really popular in a lot of places. It's very popular
Mm,
here in Japan.
yeah.
Very popular in Europe.
Hmm.
It's not so popular in North America.
Well,
Uh,
right now, I mean, it has been.
right now, yes.
Yeah.
Like I know, like there's bands like that happen, like a band like Sabaton, for instance,
Hmm.
or a Powerwolf. They top their country's charts constantly
Right.
when they put a new album out,
Mm,
and or they're doing arena shows to 30,000 people
mhm.
on the regular
Yeah.
and things like that. So when they come, it's funny because I always tell people, 'cause a lot of my audience is North American because of when I stream, and so I'm telling them on concert news, and I was like, it's interesting because they get to go see these bands in very small, intimate
Yeah, that's
venues.
right. Yeah.
Um, and I'm used to seeing like bands like there's some people I know that are like recently I saw some people who went to go see Baby Metal in the US,
Right.
and they're like, we saw them at a venue with only like 2,000 people, and I was like, like I've seen them at like festivals and things here or dome shows or
Yeah.
things like that where it's 15, 20, 30,000 people show up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's a little different.
I
Uh,
can't even imagine a baby metal show in a building that small. Um,
yeah, and it happens. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it
in
happens a lot
three-quarters of it's
actually.
going to be the band.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's true. Um, I have some friends that have seen some bands that have done some truly massive shows in other countries, but in
Mm,
the United States
yeah.
specifically, it's very small venues.
Mm. Well, the
Um,
people who like baby metal over here do love baby metal over here. So there's
yeah.
yeah, it's not it's there. I don't think there's a lot of folks who enjoy the metal type music and punk music for that metal matter. Never really seem to just dip their toes in it. They they go full
Generally
blast.
not. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what do you think about as a musician when you see, and you're over there right now in Japan, when you see the
Yeah.
holographic concerts, where
Oh,
what is your concept of that as a drummer?
like as far as like, are we talking like Hatsune Miku?
Right.
Are we
Yeah.
talking like the Tupac things,
Yeah.
or like what are
Well, I
we?
mean, the Miku basically
Um,
goes because from what I see, there's a live band, and
mm,
you still have to play the song along with it. I mean, that would seem to be pretty complicated.
well, in that case, it's like having a backing track, I
Uh,
believe. I'm not quite sure because they're not doing it like VTubers do it with Hatsune Miku.
right.
It's all kind of pre-programmed. So unlike some live like VTuber kind of shows where they have things going on behind the stage where things are happening,
Hmm.
like people are actually performing and it's being mocapped or something like that,
Right.
and the vocals are still happening live.
Right.
Hatsune Miku exists as a vocal bank, right?
Right.
So as a musician, they're just playing to a backing track. I really do not think it would be much different than doing a cover song,
Hmm.
like as a drummer.
Oh well. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you see it like on YouTube or something like that. Somebody does a cover song. It's probably playing this, probably very similar to playing that or learning a song.
Mm. Yeah. You
Um,
don't get a chance to ad lib too much, I would imagine.
well, it depends on how they have it programmed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I guess.
Usually shows here in Japan have MC moments.
Mm.
So most bands here in Japan, you have MC parts where it's a dedicated portion of the stream, sometimes several. And during those portions of the concert is when you interact
Mm.
with the crowd.
Oh. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, not every band does it.
Yeah.
but it's pretty common
Yeah. I can't see a lot of
to see it.
the big places, a lot of the bigger tours in the United States. I can't see that much. There's so much involved in getting those tours together that they try as much as they can to not have the audience involved whatsoever.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Uh,
And then really just talking to the audience though. It's not
yeah.
really getting too much interaction.
Mm,
Now here I will say this, there's a lot of bands here that have callbacks and things. There's a lot of audience participation
mm-hmm,
in concerts here, especially in metal,
mm.
especially at a baby metal show.
Oh well.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of crowd back and forth that happens, and same. There's some other bands too that have it too. Bandmate is another big one that has a lot of those moments.
Oh yeah. I've seen them.
Um,
I have seen them. Yes. So.
yeah, Hanabiya, which is a metalcore band,
Uh-huh.
they have similar stuff as well
uh,
during parts of their show.
So are you in a band or are you kind of bouncing around between bands?
I am in a band.
Mm.
I am in a band.
Would you
hmm
like to
I have
name the
been in the
band
band. I've
or
been in a couple different ones now.
yeah?
So,
Would you like to name it or would it out you too much?
yeah, that's the one thing I do not talk about.
Okay. Oh, we won't
I leave
delve
people
into that.
guessing on that one.
But
So,
the no, I won't get too close with that then. But early on, when you started learning that different type of drumming, um, did you have any fears going in about playing in front of people, or was it just something that you took to so easily and quickly?
see, I guess for me, learning taiko drumming, like learning to, do taiko really
Uh-huh.
early on was I first saw it and as a, you know, at like Matsuri at a festival, right?
Mm,
So I saw it in that kind of area and I was just enthralled by that.
mm,
And that's what got me into that. And then, you're doing it with a group of people, so you're kind of in front of people already.
mm-hmm.
And then as you grow into that a little bit, then you start doing a local festival, like a
Mm-hmm.
local town festival, things like that.
Yeah.
And it keeps growing. And I guess you kind of just get used to it. But I've never been necessarily afraid of an audience. When it comes to streaming, I'm the streamer who leaves the numbers up
Oh, really?
because I'm used to seeing a live audience.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it does not phase me
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like I see people there and it's like, okay, cool, people are here. The number is just a number. It doesn't mean anything because when you start out as a musician as well, you could be doing shows at live houses and things, and you're there with four other bands. You're not sure who's there for who necessarily.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
Because three or four bands are playing. You don't know.
yeah. Well, also, leaving. Everybody always says, don't show the numbers, but the punk thing is to not do what everybody else says. just, just, go,
Yes.
just go ahead and do it anyway. and
Yes.
it that kind of got lost in the translation over the years, I think.
I have a saying. I have a saying because sometimes on stream I will give advice because other streamers come in. That's just natural.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'll be talking about something about streaming, and I'll be like, "Don't worry, I will continue to do all the things wrong, so you do not have to." And he's
Blaze,
like, "But it seems to be working for you," and I was like, "Because I'm doing everything wrong."
blazing the trail by burning down the forest. That's how we're going to do it.
I suppose, in a matter of speaking, yes. It doesn't make much sense sometimes when you really think about it.
But when you're
When I started, I didn't really use Twitter. I didn't have YouTube. I didn't have
yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah. Well,
I just streamed.
yeah. Well, it was still kind of a proto. It was still very early yet. I mean, It was still trying to figure out, which foot to put first. So it was kind of the Wild West in a way, wasn't it?
It was for a little while. I want to say like it started even before that. I want to say like I think if the VTubers has started like in like 2020,
Hmm.
there was really no infrastructure there for anybody to do anything. There's no programming. There was nothing.
Right.
It was all very hard back then to figure things out. And I remember when I started, like the months leading up to it, there was the bare bones compared to what's there now. Um,
and
And the leap that happened from when I debuted and from when I came back, the first few months when I came back was just really finding my footing. There's that 7 month period had so much change as well
oh yeah,
that it was just I was like, oh, I have to learn a whole bunch of new things
yeah. But
very quickly.
it's still
I know
going.
things about computers now that I never thought I would ever know. So
I know different ways to break them now.
there's that, yes.
Yes, but the expansion and the innovation is going to continue. Um, the more people get involved with it, I think, anyway. And I'm just an outsider looking in, but the I also come from the radio side where marketing and things were so big. But I just don't think that the audience, that a total audience that could enjoy this, has been reached yet at all. There's still a lot of people who don't know what's going on with it, and
I
that
think that's fair.
yeah, there's millions
I
and
think
millions.
yeah, there's I mean, I think what is it? I don't know. I honestly the number right now. I used to know what it was.
Mm,
I think now there's over 75,000 VTubers.
mm,
So there's a lot of people there. I think the problem primarily is I think a lot of people limit themselves because they're not thinking outside of the box.
mm,
I
yeah,
think that's one of the biggest problems where a lot of people go, "Oh, I don't know how to grow as a VTuber." It's because you're just doing what everyone else has already been doing.
right, right,
I think that I think a lot of people need to start really thinking outside the box at this point and expanding it because I think, like you said, there's room. There's a lot of people out there that would be interested
yeah, yeah. I mean,
in VTubers.
yeah. If you can't find somebody on stream that you're not enjoying, at least in the background, what they're doing, then you're not looking very hard because
Exactly. Yeah.
there's so many things, musicians, singers, um, gameplay only folks, people who are just so good at talking, that's all their stream is. um, they're they're
Just had a stream
lecturers.
like that actually.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. A lot of it comes down to the personality too. um, the people come back. They'll come in if you do a certain game they like. They'll stay for the personality of the person playing the game. That was kind of like it was in radio back in the 1800s. And
I'm just reminded of a of Living Color and Cult of Personality.
yeah, yeah, kind of.
It's very much that without the true meaning of that song, which is
Yes,
a whole other meaning.
yeah,
But sure, I just the song just popped into my
yeah.
head.
It's a hell of a song
Um,
though.
it is a great song.
I'm floored that they didn't do more than that. But yeah, over
They're
the
doing
years.
more work. They're doing more work. I keep on a slight tangent. They're doing an album soon. So
Oh,
from what I've
good,
heard. So,
good, because I want to hear it.
yeah.
That was so
So same here.
promising. That was so promising when that came out. I was like, yes, there's a good direction. And then,
But yeah, I think a lot of people, and I think this is something that I think there's an interesting dichotomy that happens. I think there's an interesting split between how a lot of people how VTubing's grown because
uh,
VTubing grew out of Japan,
right,
and I think in the very early days, a lot of people were trying to mimic that
hmm,
from all over the world,
right,
not just Western countries, but everywhere. Like even other countries in Asia, other countries in like other people in Africa, people from all over the world are trying to
Europe, yeah,
replicate that.
absolutely,
And I think people are slowly finding their footing from cul- other cultures bringing in their perspectives and their things, which is a good thing.
hmm,
And I think there's some kind of friction there because again, they want to. There's this idea of what VTubing's supposed to be from a certain aspect, and it's like no, it's just a personality thing. It's just
hmm,
literally the brand is you, but that's just streaming, right?
right, right,
So or music, that's anything. I equate a lot of things streaming world to music, and I was like, streaming is one giant music festival,
mm.
and you're always the opener for someone else, and someone's always the opener for you.
I like that. That's really good.
So yeah, it's just how it works. No matter how big or how small you are, unless you're Iron Mouse, and then well, different.
Then you just do what. Then
But
you just steamroll and go to the next thing.
yeah, which is fine. She
Yeah.
deserves all of it. I love
Eh,
her to death.
Oh yeah.
But but there are certain creators out there that have that. They
Mm.
have that. They have that. I look at certain streamers out there, like OB Katie Cat, who
Mm.
has a hugely loyal following,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of it was just her hanging out on stream a lot.
Yep.
Talking about music and producing music, like producing full songs on
Yep.
stream.
Yep.
Um, and that hooked a lot of people because she was doing something different,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And I think there's some other people out there. I think you had recently, actually, you had Bonnie on,
Yep.
Banicula,
Yep.
and she does different stuff all the time.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. It's hard.
you
It's
have
hard to
people
keep
like that.
keep her in line.
Well, I mean,
Don't even try.
you know, don't even try to do it. Like it's a thing where I think a lot of creators that see success and that do well are thinking outside the box, and
Mm.
they're doing things, whether no matter how big or small they are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I still stand by this. Somebody mentioned this thing, and people got very upset about them as a streamer. I forget who it was now,
Mm.
and they made a comment of the best streamer in the world you've never even heard of.
Yeah. I would.
Because there's probably some channel that has 2 viewers and their production value and everything is just absolutely perfect.
Yep. Yep.
But you've never heard of them.
Right. Right. On the other hand,
And they may quit,
yeah.
because
Yeah,
most people do.
yeah.
But
But there also might be somebody out there who's got a laptop that barely works and a iPhone 2 who's out there scuffling and struggling, and they've got a really good personality and lots of talent and things that they could do, but that's all they can do right now. And
and you know what though? There's some VTubers, and this is going back to that comment earlier. There is some VTubers that started out with a half broken laptop in a closet,
yep,
and a microphone, and that was it.
yep, yep.
And I think that's something that people forget. I always tell people, I was like, you do not need a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I started very small. Now we have mixers. I use vintage audio equipment. The microphone I'm using now is actually from the 50s.
Ooh, I
Um,
love it.
yeah. If you're curious, for anybody out there that might be a microphone nerd or an audiophile, the current microphone I'm using right now and for streams is a Electro Voice 636 Slim Air
Electro
from the
voice.
1950s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's original, still using the old Amphenol connectors and things like that too.
Wow, wow. Those
Yep, it's
that
all original.
it brings me back to my childhood. uh,
And I this is another thing I tell people like a lot of times too is I none of my equipment except for my stream decks, which I love.
uh-huh.
Um, and none of it's streamer branded. I use
Mm,
photography, LED lights.
yeah,
I use professional. I use just regular mixing boards for
yeah,
audio.
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
use old microphones, old PA microphones, things like that. None of
yeah,
it's
yeah. And I talk about the microphones a lot because I think people could sometimes go over the edge with the microphone they use if they're just talking. Um, I mean, I'm never going to sing. Okay, you're not going to hear it because I like people and I don't want them to run away from me. But I don't need that huge frequency, up and down type thing. Mine's pretty much a monotone when I talk, and I only need certain frequencies response. I don't need you know, a Shure $2,000 microphone. But some folks who are doing other
oh
things,
right.
who are doing music, or who have extremely low voices, or that type of thing, which drive me crazy that people have lower voices than me. Um, but they do need the better microphones because they have that frequency response that some folks don't. Little things
Yeah,
like
I think some people also don't realize that not every microphone is going to be good for your voice.
no, no, that's for sure.
um, I have a microphone here, which people love. That's made in a soup can.
Oh, I love
Hang
it.
on, this is
Uh, that's it. It's a homemade brew in a soup can.
I mean, it sounds like this to give you an idea. Um, it's like two strings in a can, but that's what this sounds like.
It is. It basically is strings in a can.
It
String.
really is.
Uh,
But a lot of that stuff, people, you could do that. Sure, you could do that
mm,
through software, but I have a thing where there's just a quarter-inch cable plugged into a soup can with a microphone module in there,
oh,
and it leads to my mixer. I can just do that voice whenever I want to.
well, that's brilliant.
Um,
That's great for those old timey radio shows.
yeah, it's kind of a thing. A lot of people liked when I did my Alistair impression from Aspen. Um, they got a kick out of that when I did that one a lot.
Oh, that's really good.
But yeah, you don't need a lot. You don't need a lot of things. I used
Mhm,
to use a condenser microphone. I don't use one anymore.
mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
but
musicians need
yeah,
different
I
things.
think yeah.
You can do a lot of things can be solved with a little sound baffling too. That it doesn't cost a whole lot, arm and a leg to do. Um, just
Absolutely. There's a lot of streamers out there that do not treat their rooms at all.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, like you could do like me and talk directly into a window, which sounds really stupid. Or you can put something over the top of it, which makes it sound a lot better.
you
I
talk into a window?
Yeah, Windows are great for audio.
Oh, they can, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
That's one thing I always tell people. I tell people it's like talking to a bathtub because I have multiple monitors in front of me, so
Yes.
it's a lot of, there's a lot of bounce back here in front of
Yeah,
me.
echo.
Um,
And yeah, it's
a little bit, yes.
not feedback. Feedback is the worst enemy of anybody with a microphone. Um, don't
Thankfully, I don't deal with that too
Yeah,
often.
don't put the microphone in front of the speakers. Never do that. Uh,
Never do that, and also never turn on 48 volt when you're using old school dynamic microphones. Just
ooh,
no,
no, no, no.
just do
the
not do that stuff.
the pain
But
is
no,
real.
I think there's a thing to it where there's a lot of I think creativity can come in a lot of different ways,
Oh,
and
yeah,
audio is a big one because as a VTuber, yes, you have the model, but your voice is where people are coming from.
yeah, and it's so
That's the most important thing. Your audio, people forgive video stuff all the time, right?
yeah,
But audio is
yeah. And
it is the most important thing.
when you have so many people now that we would not have heard their talents at all 10, 20 years ago. But now we got some really good singers coming out. Some folks who are really great voice actors. Some folks who have all sorts of different talents. Again, maybe they're just really good at talking with people that we would not have known. Uh, I wouldn't have known growing up. I mean, we had three television channels. That's all we had. But yeah, and an old Pong game. But we I think that is absolutely amazing and wonderful that we do get this chance for people all over the world.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you're talking like, I mean, it's like when some people tell me of the early days of the internet, and I go, oh, back when you had three websites, the weather, Star Trek, and porn.
That's right.
And
And those are
that's what it was,
and those
right?
those are still in the top five. Yes.
I think you might actually be right. Yeah, I think you might actually be right. But
and
that's the thing. Like, it's opened up the door to so many people, and so many people have been able to do so much with it. And that's for me, that's the coolest thing in the world to see.
yeah.
I've met so many talented people and so many amazing people that inspire me.
Mm,
Um, that it's just like, and sometimes you don't get a chance to say it, right? One of the
right.
worst things in the world is being a streamer. And I say that because we're always so busy that the ability to be there for the people that we want to be there and support, the time isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And there's
and
different.
it's like we want to be there, we want to support people, and we want to, help people achieve what they want to achieve. And for me, that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
The inability to be everywhere, because here, again, in the music world, I'm used to it. It's a much slower pace.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like, when we do a show, it's 2 hours.
Right.
Everyone pays to be there,
Yeah.
and then we're gone. And then I could easily go, well, loadout's still happening. I have I have a few hours. There's a friend of mine band is playing over here, or like we have a day off.
Hmm.
I know my friend's band is playing here, so I'm gonna go there and see them.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it's a lot harder to do that in the streaming world because I think you do too many things.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it does. It does. If your schedule's mixed, but also too, I'm hoping that people still remember there is no reason to compete against somebody else for an audience right now. Um, in
oh, I don't. Yeah, that's silly.
in radio and television there was, because the pie was finite. There were 10,000 listeners maybe, and you had to divide that between 4 radio stations. Right now, the audience level still hasn't come close to its peak as far as total audience. Bring everybody in first, and then and then start divvying it up if you have to. Um, but
Yeah, I think to a degree, I think there's some depends on where you are.
mm,
Um, I think there's still a lot of room for growth for VTubers as a whole, like as a genre of content creation or as creatives go.
yeah,
I don't think we've seen the limit yet. I don't think we ever will.
oh,
But I think in some areas, Twitch keeps growing.
mm,
I think that the only limiting factor is going to be the platforms that you're on.
right,
I think that in the future is going to be the thing because how many people really view Twitch?
mm,
How many people compared to other sites? Like if another site comes up that's even more popular,
right,
then you might be limited by the platform,
right,
not by the audience.
mhm,
Because, that's why they always say to diversify, like have things on other places.
right,
Um, because I have people that only watch things of mine on YouTube.
right, yeah,
So that makes things a little bit different.
yeah. But it also can work as a good advertisement
Oh yeah.
to bring people over. And again, I, I mentioned the word marketing to some VTubers, and they start yelling. Like, but
About what? What are we yelling about? Are we
and
yelling yay marketing?
no, they're like, oh
Um,
no, that's the word I don't want to deal with. But eventually, if you're going to move yourself up and really make a go at it, try to make it as a career, marketing is going to be there, and you've got to pick and choose what you're going to put your brand on. Figure out what your audience is and
fair.
aim for that audience, um, and do that sort of thing. Be a little more protective of what you've got going on and selective. Um,
I think yeah, I think the thing that they're not realizing as well, and this is something like it's not a kind of gotcha at anybody that says that,
mm,
but every time you post on social media, that's marketing, right?
oh yeah.
Every going
Oh,
live post, that's marketing.
oh,
Every if you post a VOD on YouTube, that's marketing.
oh yeah, yeah.
If you yeah, I think like there's this kind of there I always say this too, is like I think people when they sit down and stream, they have to figure out what kind of streamer they want to be
Mm,
at the beginning.
mm,
Are you just in this for socialness? Are you in this for just a hobby?
mm,
Or do you want to make this a profession?
right, right. And what are you willing to do to make that happen? Um,
Yeah, that's the big one. I have done some really stupid stuff,
well,
like
I'm
streaming for 29 days straight, things like that.
yeah, yeah. I've done a lot of stupid stuff, but hopefully I got paid for most of it. That was the
Yeah,
biggest thing.
hopefully you do.
Yeah, but
That's
it's again, it's when you get along. It's always your mileage may vary with everything that you talk about in an industry like this. But Kick, you talked earlier about your you mentioned doing things and then do the opposite, and it still works. Uh, um, you don't know how it's going to hit, but you have to be agile enough to bounce back and forth from it. If something doesn't work,
well, yeah,
jump off
that's
the turtle and
true.
jump on another one.
Oh, that's true. I think there's also something to the idea of kind of understanding what you want. Again, and this goes back to that whole idea of understanding where you want to be as a streamer
Mm-hmm.
as a whole, like what you want to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody should really go into streaming with the idea at the beginning, at least, to make money.
Mm.
Won't.
Yes.
Um, it's very much like being an indie musician.
Mm.
Um, don't expect to make a ton of money, but not saying not saying it's not possible because it
Yeah.
certainly is.
You might,
But
you might get free food where you're going or a bologna sandwich, but you
yeah,
get a little something
you know,
for
if
it.
you do well enough, in this case, you might get a free game or two, right?
Yeah,
A key to a game or something. A developer might give you a free game or something like that,
right.
or things like that. I think the math changes. I think everybody is a certain point where the math changes,
Mhm.
where you used to begin to have overhead, where you begin to be maybe you're paying an editor,
Mm.
maybe you're doing other things, and then it becomes a different situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Merchandise, all
for
that stuff.
me, I treat my whole team very much like I do music, like with my band,
Mm.
um, where my mods and like my assistant and everybody like that, they are all very much part of my team, and they're very crucial. They're like roadies. They're without my roadies and techs and things like that, things just don't get done.
Oh yeah, yeah. Without the lifters and
So
without the lifters and dial spinners, nothing's happening.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now they know on my end everything is so crazy and so custom at this point because I run two PCs
Mm.
and there's dual graphics cards happening in one of them, and it's craziness. But they know that they can offer no help there because they that's not their expertise, right?
Yeah.
Um, it'd be like asking a guitar tech or a studio engineer to fix something on a, there's a live feed problem happening from here. The studio engineer's going to go, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
Exactly.
That's not my job.
Yeah. In radio, we would get that.
But
We'd have a ball game on from a national network, and they'd be having a problem with the feed, and someone would call us at the local radio station. Can you fix that? No, I'm not in Chicago. I can't fix it.
exactly. And I think that's the thing where, when you're coming back to the marketing idea, it's like, I think you have to kind of figure out like what you want your brand to be, where you want to be, how you want to be perceived by other people.
Yeah.
Um, and some people are like, it's just me, and this is just me and a character. They're not playing a character. They're not putting that out there. There's no lore. Maybe it's just a virtual representation of them, which is perfectly fine.
Mm.
I think that's actually one of the coolest things that's happened.
Yeah.
But I really think when you get down to it, there is in the streaming space, there is this, a lot of people try to push back at it and go, I think there's also the thing of just play what you love. And I'm like, I always say, I agree, but also realize this. What you love, you might be boring to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You could be so bored, like it might not be entertaining.
Right.
There's certain game genres I love.
Yeah.
I would never stream them.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people would like to watch me play Scrabble.
Well, I mean, you never know. I
Yeah.
mean, are you like, a world professional level Scrabble player? Maybe.
I was ranked number 83 in the state in the Class D level.
Oh, see, there you go.
That's
your entire VTuber persona now.
that's the thing I keep telling my grandson. Look, see, I was ranked in something. Not even the top 50, but there I was. Vix, it's an absolute pleasure talking with you, and I hope we can get you on again. We had too much to talk about. And just an incredibly interesting person, obviously, and someone to keep an eye and ear out for. We're going to have all of the links we've been able to put together on the description for the video, and please keep in touch and let me know what's going on with you, and we'll get you on again here soon. Maybe we can get you to do some music.
Oh, absolutely! I would love to.
Yeah, we got the music special coming up later this year. So, thanks again so much, Vix.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Eric Loy Interviews. Join us again next time when we talk to another member of the always interesting VTuber community.